You clicked because you saw it. The viral headline that lit up every gossip page in Europe. Meghan Markle storms out of Paris Fashion Week after humiliating on-air confrontation with friends. Crowd erupts in applause. Yes, it happened. Cameras caught it. Microphones caught it. And the internet replayed it until the laughter turned into headlines and the headlines turned into history. But why did it happen? What could make one of the world's most photographed women, the Duchess of Sussex herself, abandon the most glamorous runway of the year in front of her own circle? Before we get into the moment that broke Paris Fashion Week, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. That simple comment tells YouTube to spread the story further. Because tonight, what unfolded in Paris wasn't just about couture. It was about class, pride, and the price of a title. It was a second evening of Fashion Week, the night reserved for A-list royalty, film icons, and heiresses who wore arrogance like perfume. The Grand Palais Ephemer glittered like a diamond box. Crystal chandeliers reflected off the glass runway. Cameras flashed like lightning, and the audience murmured as if waiting for a coronation. And then she arrived. Meghan Markle stepped onto the carpet in a black velvet balmain gown, shoulders squared, expression carved in confidence. The crowd gasped, the cameras clicked, and social media feeds lit up instantly. The Duchess has arrived. Meghan back in Paris. All eyes on her. But not all eyes were friendly. In the second row sat three women the British press once dubbed the Markle Circle, former close friends from her Hollywood days, all now famous in their own right. Jessica Mulroney, Misha Nanu, and Abigail Spencer. They were smiling, but not warmly. The show's opening segment was being streamed live by Vogue TV, a panel format hosted by fashion journalist Camille Devereaux, who loved turning gossip into gladiator sport. Camille's guest lineup was lethal. Misha Nanu, designer and old confidant of Meghan. Jessica Mulroney, former stylist and longtime friend turned distant. Meghan herself, seated center, expecting fashion talk, not personal warfare. At first, everything felt harmless. Compliments flew. Meghan laughed politely, adjusting her earrings, poised, rehearsed. Then Camille threw the first stone. Meghan, darling, everyone here still adores calling you the Duchess of Sussex. But tell me, are you still comfortable being addressed that way? The room went quiet. Cameras zoomed in. Meghan blinked once, smiled, and said, "Of course. It's part of my history, part of who I am." But Jessica Mulroney leaned into her mic, voice dripping with irony. "Part of who you were, maybe?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not kind laughter, but sharp. Meghan froze. The smile stayed, but her knuckles whitened on the armrest. Camille, sensing blood, pushed further. "Well, we all move on, don't we? Some of us keep titles, some of us keep friends." The audience gasped. Even Misha looked shocked. Meghan straightened her back. "I've always believed friendship doesn't need titles to have value," she replied, calm but clipped. Jessica smirked. "That's easy to say when you introduce yourself as Duchess to waiters." Half the audience laughed. The other half cringed. And then came the applause, slow, brutal, like thunder rolling through silk. The cameras panned across faces, models, editors, influencers, all watching Meghan Markle, the woman who once conquered royal halls, now cornered on a Paris stage. "That's not true," Meghan said firmly. "I never use my title for attention." Camille interjected with a smirk. "Then why correct people when they don't use it?" The crowd gasped again. Meghan's composure cracked for the first time. "Excuse me?" Jessica leaned in, whispering into her mic, but loud enough for the audience to hear. "We love you, Meg, but sometimes you remind everyone you're royalty, even when nobody asked." The applause came fast, fierce, and mocking. Something inside Meghan snapped. Her jaw tightened, her eyes glistened. She looked from face to face. People she once dined with, traveled with, trusted. "I thought this was about fashion," she said quietly. "But I see it's about fascination." Camille tried to smooth it over. No, darling, we're just having fun." "Mockery isn't fun," Meghan interrupted. "It's cruelty wearing lipstick." The audience went dead silent. Then someone in the back, a British accent, shouted, "Well said, Duchess." The crowd laughed again, Louder this time, the laughter mixed with irony and applause. Meghan stood, lifted her clutch, and said evenly, "If this is what friendship looks like, I'll sit alone." She turned, the train of her gown sweeping across the stage like a velvet storm. The cameras caught every step. The grace, the fury, the humiliation burning just beneath the calm. She walked off set. The applause followed her, not of admiration, but of mockery. Within minutes, the clip hit Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. The caption read, "Meghan Markle storms out. Friends turn foes at Paris Fashion Week." One tweet read, "The Duchess won a throne. Paris gave her a mirror." Another, "This isn't Meghan Markle's villain era. It's her wake-up era." Within hours, hashtag exploded. Hashtag Duchess drama, hashtag Paris walkout, hashtag title fatigue. By midnight, CNN, BBC, and TMZ were running the clip on loop. The next morning, every outlet carried the same frozen frame. Meghan Markle halfway to the exit, flashes exploding around her like lightning bolts. Behind her, Jessica Mulroney and Misha Nanu half smiling, half stunned. The internet was merciless. Some said she overreacted. Others said she'd been publicly ambushed. But everyone agreed the Duchess had been dethroned not by royals but by friends. Public relations experts called it the moment the Markle mystique cracked. Brand analysts noted a 15% dip in her favorability metrics across luxury fashion demographics. Fashion Week commentators whisper that Paris had finally done what the palace couldn't, humble her. Yet, beneath the humiliation, a new narrative was quietly forming, one that would turn in her favor. Because humiliation, when handled correctly, can transform into power. And Meghan Markle, love her or hate her, has never stayed down for long. But before redemption came reflection, and the next act would show how one woman turned mockery into a mirror for an entire generation obsessed with titles, image, and validation. The morning after the Paris incident, the city woke up buzzing louder than the runway lights the night before. Cafes overflowed with gossip, and every tabloid headline screamed the same four words. Meghan Markle walked out. But the more people replayed the footage, the more they realized it wasn't just a walkout. It was an unraveling. Paris had witnessed not a diva tantrum, but a televised fracture between friendship, fame, and identity. By 6 a.m., millions had dissected every frame. Influencers uploaded breakdown videos in split-screen reactions. "Freeze it right here. See Jessica smirk?" She knew exactly what she was doing. Fashion podcasts called it the slap heard across couture. Twitter Spaces ran overnight debates titled Royal Ego versus Real Friends. And for once, both royal supporters and critics agreed on something. The laughter from that audience had hurt. Within 12 hours, clips amassed 35 million views. Yet amid the noise, one phrase kept resurfacing. "She's obsessed with that Duchess title." People twist humor. "Meghan knows my heart. We've been sisters for years. If laughter hurt her, I regret it." But minutes later, tabloids captured her to gala, laughing when asked about the Duchess drama. Headlines flipped instantly. Apology or PR performance? Misha Nanu took a different route, an op-ed in Vogue France. Friendship should evolve like fashion. Sometimes what once fit no longer does. It was poetic and pointed. Social media translated it bluntly. Misha just said Meghan's old news. Even Camille Devereaux, the host, entered the fray on a morning talk show. "I adore Meghan, but she walked in with royal airs. Paris loves authenticity, not titles." That single sentence replayed on every news feed. By the weekend, public opinion had turned. The narrative was simple, brutal, and click-friendly. The Duchess demands respect, but can't handle real talk. For 7 days, Meghan said nothing. No tweets. No press release. No sightings. Just silence. And that silence became the loudest sound on the internet. Paparazzi camped outside her Paris hotel, snapping shots of an empty car, leaving through the side exit. Commentators guessed, speculated, invented. She's furious. She's in talks to sue. She's writing a tell-all about friendship. Meanwhile, her team was doing none of those things. They were strategizing. precisely, meticulously, and with the patience of a chess player waiting for her opponent to overextend. A week later, something unexpected happened. The media began to choke on its own echo. French columnists started questioning the mob-like ridicule. Le Monde published an editorial titled, "The humiliation of a woman on a runway should never be entertainment." The Guardian followed. Mocking Meghan Markle is becoming a social sport with no referee. Even American television began softening. NBC's Today Show asked, "Are we punishing Meghan for carrying herself with standards we ignore in others?" The pendulum was swinging back. Then came the announcement that made every newsroom sit up straight. Meghan Markle to appear live on the Graham Norton show. It was her first on-camera appearance since Paris, and rumors flew that she would address the Fashion Week incident head-on. When the night arrived, the studio was electric. Graham Norton opened with his usual cheeky tone. "Well, we tried to get Meghan Markle for years. Turns out all we needed was a runway meltdown." The crowd laughed uneasily. Then she walked out. Meghan entered in a crisp white suit, hair pulled back, smile steady but measured. No royal airs, no defensiveness. Just a woman ready to control her narrative. "Good evening, Graham," she said. "Thank you for inviting me and for being brave." The audience erupted in cheers. Graham leaned forward. "You know why you're here. The clip has been played 1,000,000 times. What was going through your mind that night in Paris?" Meghan paused, looking down for a moment before meeting his eyes. "I realize that people love watching women lose composure, especially if those women once wore crowns." Gasps. The audience froze. "Titles don't make people superior," she continued, "but mocking someone for having one doesn't make you equal either." Applause rumbled through the room. Graham tried to defuse it with humor. "So you're not dropping the Duchess title anytime soon?" Meghan smiled faintly. "I don't have to drop it. It's not a burden. It's a chapter. But chapters end when you turn the page, and Paris helped me turn mine." The audience stood. It wasn't applause of mockery this time. It was acknowledgement. Later in the interview, Graham asked lightly, "If you'd say one thing to your friends from that night, what would it be?" Meghan looked straight into the camera. "I'd say thank you. Because you reminded me that titles don't protect you from betrayal. Character does." The audience erupted. Even Graham looked moved. That clip alone garnered over 50 million views in 24 hours. Hashtags flipped. Hashtag respect the Duchess, hashtag Paris redemption, hashtag Markle speaks. Suddenly the narrative shifted. What had been a mockery became a moment of maturity. In London, BBC commentator Amelia Stone wrote, "It's striking how Meghan's poise on Graham Norton contrasted with her treatment in Paris. One night, she was a punchline. The next, a Professor Grace. French journalists called it une victoire silencieuse, a silent victory. Even critics softened. Piers Morgan, longtime skeptic, tweeted, "I may not agree with her methods, but tonight Meghan showed class under fire." And with that, the internet flipped once again. Within a week, the clip became a cultural touchstone. Universities use it in media ethics courses as a case study on public humiliation and dignified response. Luxury brands invited Meghan for speaking engagements about resilience and reputation management. In a bold move, Balmain offered her a partnership for a limited edition charity line titled Courage in Velvet. Proceeds would go to women rebuilding careers after public scandal. Critics who had mocked her suddenly praised her for turning humiliation into humanitarianism. But the true turning point came when Jessica Mulroney was invited to appear on a Canadian talk show and was asked about Meghan's comeback. Her voice shook. "I didn't expect her to handle it that well. She taught me something. She handled pain like it was a profession." That quote went viral too. Suddenly the villains looked small and the target looked tall. Still, underneath the triumph, questions lingered. Was her forgiveness real or strategic? Did she really move on, or was this merely act when a bigger play for control her narrative? Because as the Paris Fashion Council prepared its closing ceremony, rumors spread that Meghan had been quietly invited to attend again, this time as a keynote speaker. Would she return to the scene of her public humiliation to claim a different kind of crown? The world was about to find out. Paris. 2 weeks after her walkout, the Grand Palais Ephemere gleamed again under the same chandeliers that had witnessed her fall. Invitations had gone out quietly, almost conspiratorially. Special keynote address, the power of poise in public spaces. Speaker Meghan Markle. The announcement stunned everyone. People thought she'd never set foot in that building again. But now she was coming back, not as a guest, not as a victim, but as the main event. Fashion insiders buzzed. She's brave, or she's crazy. Either way, Paris will be watching. And watch they did. Every major outlet cleared its schedule. Live feeds, TikTok streams. Even CNN International picked it up under the headline, "The Duchess Returns." As limousines lined up outside, the mood inside was electric but uncertain. The same friend from before, Jessica Mulroney, Misha Nanu, and Camille Devereaux, sat near the front row, invited by the council for balance. Their laughter was muted this time. Backstage, Meghan adjusted her pearl cufflinks. Her stylist whispered, "Ready, Your Grace?" She smiled faintly. "Tonight, I'm just Meghan." The cue light flashed. She stepped into the spotlight. The room fell silent as she walked to the podium, the sound of her heels echoing like slow drums. No music, no entourage, just grace wrapped in discipline. She looked across the audience, the same faces that had once applauded her humiliation, and said softly, "Good evening, Paris." I wasn't sure I'd ever return to this stage. But sometimes the best way to heal a bruise is to let the world see the color fade. Applause, cautious at first, built like a rising wave. When I walked out of this room 2 weeks ago, she continued, I did so thinking I'd lost something important, a title, perhaps a bit of dignity. But what I gained was clarity. I learned that when people mock your value, they're usually searching for their own. The crowd leaned forward. Jessica looked down. Misha crossed her legs, expression tense. We use words like Duchess or celebrity or influencer, Meghan said, as if labels can replace character. But character is what you carry when the labels fall off. This time the applause was spontaneous, genuine. Behind the scenes, production crews cut to archival footage of her earlier humiliation. The smirk, the laughter, the walkout. Now those images played side by side with her standing tall, delivering measured words that silenced her critics. Fashion journalists later wrote, the woman who was once mocked for demanding respect ended up defining it. Halfway through, Camille Devereaux, the host who had cornered her weeks earlier, rose from the audience microphone. Meghan, she said nervously, do you forgive me for how that night went? The room froze. Cameras zoomed in. This wasn't scripted. Meghan looked at her for a long second, then smiled gracefully. Camille, I don't believe in canceling people. I believe in conversations. So yes, consider this one our new beginning. Thunderous applause. Camille sat down, eyes wet. Even Jessica clapped. Paris taught me that power isn't being untouched by criticism, Meghan continued. It's being unmoved by mockery. And if you ever find yourself applauded for someone else's pain, ask yourself, what part of you needed that sound? You could have heard a pin drop. Titles fade, fame fades, but dignity, if you guard it, does not. The crowd rose to its feet. Standing ovation. For 30 seconds, the entire Grand Palais was a wave of hands and flashlights raised toward her. Within hours, clips of her speech spread like wildfire. Headlines across continents. Vogue, Meghan returns and wins Paris without a runway. The New York Times, grace under flashbulbs, how Markle mastered the moment. Le Monde, elle a réécrit le mode de la dignité. She rewrote the fashion of dignity. TikTok clips tag hashtag Paris Redemption crossed 100 million views in 36 hours. Commenters wrote, she walked out in pain, came back in power. This is how you reclaim a narrative without a shout. Even the British press, normally ruthless, acknowledged the pivot. The Daily Mail's headline read grudgingly, Markle shows majesty after all. Days later, Meghan and Jessica crossed paths at a charity event in London. Reporters hovered like hawks, hoping for drama. Instead, they got closure. Jessica approached her slowly, apologizing on camera. "You didn't deserve that night," she said. "I forgot how it feels to be on the other side of the laughs." Meghan nodded. Apology accepted. Next time someone's about a joke, be the one who doesn't laugh. It wasn't revenge, it was leadership. The clip spread as fast as her speech. Grace is the new revenge became a viral motto. Fashion houses began introducing ethics segments in their shows. Balmain and Dior announced new campaigns called the Respect Collection. Meghan was invited to headline a summit on decorum in digital spaces. Celebrities who'd once mocked her publicly started quoting her lines in interviews. "Don't chase titles, chase truth. If they mock you, make it a masterclass." Even royal analysts admitted the truth. Meghan had just outclassed an entire institution without wearing a crown. Privately, friends close to Meghan revealed that the Paris incident had nearly broken her. One confidant told People magazine, "She cried that night, but then she said something I'll never forget. They didn't take my dignity, they woke it up." That line would later headline billboards across Los Angeles and London. To close Fashion Week, the council offered Meghan a unique honor to present the final award for cultural influence in fashion. She walked on stage in a simple cream gown, no royal jewelry, no guards, no spectacle. As she handed the award to a young designer, the crowd rose again in respect. The same room that once mocked her now stood for her. After the ceremony, reporters asked if she still preferred to be called the Duchess. She smiled. "Call me whatever you like. Titles don't stick, tone does." That quote made front pages from Los Angeles to Tokyo. Within months, the phrase Markle moment entered pop culture lexicons. It meant a public humiliation turned into a lesson in grace. Brands referenced it. Motivational speakers quoted it. Young influencers recreated it. Meghan didn't have to speak again. The world spoke for her. Yet beneath all the redemption, there remained a final question. One that lingered through every newsroom and living room that discussed her name. Had Meghan finally found peace in public life? Or had she just learned how to mask pain and poise? Because the final act, what she did next, away from runways and microphones, would reveal the true answer. 2 months had passed since the night Paris applauded her humiliation, and then later, her resurrection. Fashion had moved on. Headlines had quieted. But something deeper lingered. Meghan's story had imprinted itself in the culture, like perfume that refused to fade. She was no longer the Duchess who stormed out. She had become the woman who walked back in. And now, she was preparing for something bigger than a comeback interview. She was preparing for a redefinition. At sunrise in Montecito, Meghan sat at her writing desk, surrounded by notebooks, newspaper clippings, and stills from Paris. Her assistant entered. "Are you sure you want to call it the price of Polish?" Meghan smiled. "Because that's what they call women like me. Polished, perfect, performative. They never ask what it costs to stay composed." The project was half memoir, half documentary. It wasn't about royalty or revenge. It was about resilience. Every frame juxtaposed the Paris footage with unheard audio. Her breathing before walking out. Her trembling hand clutching the clutch. Her whispered, "Keep walking." Producers cried when they saw the rough cut. One said, "This isn't scandal, it's scripture." When word leaked that Netflix had greenlit the documentary, curiosity spiked again. The teaser alone, 30 seconds of her voice over a silent runway, racked up 80 million views in a week. "They clapped when I left," her voice said. "So I learned to clap for myself." It was the most shared quote of the year. Tabloids that once mocked her now called it the sound of self-respect. Royal reporters, grudgingly fascinated, admitted that Meghan had done something few ever could. She'd taken humiliation, an emotion most fear, and turned it into an industry of inspiration. The Fashion Council, sensing the cultural moment, invited her to premiere the film back where it all began, the Grand Palais premiere. It was poetic symmetry. The same marble floor, the same echoing lights. But this time every seat had her name printed on it. When she entered, the audience stood. No boos, no mockery, just reverence. Even her former friends were there, looking nervous, their laughter replaced by quiet awe. As the lights dimmed and her film began to play, the crowd watched the story unfold. The ambush, the laughter, the walkout, and finally the return. When the credits rolled, no one moved. Then, a single clap broke the silence, followed by hundreds more. This time, the applause wasn't ironic. It was atonement. After the screening, Meghan walked the microphone in a flowing cream gown. Her voice was calm, steady, deliberate. 2 months ago, I was laughed at in this very room. Tonight, we laugh together. That's growth, not the absence of pain, but the presence of understanding. She looked toward Jessica, Misha, and Camille. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without bitterness. Then she turned to the crowd. I'm not here as a duchess. I'm here as a woman who realized that dignity isn't granted by a palace or press. It's practiced day after day, when nobody's clapping. Thunderous applause filled the hall. People cried openly. The next morning, Time magazine's cover read, Meghan Markle, the crown within. Inside, the article read, she didn't reclaim her title. She transcended it. Hollywood followed suit. Late-night hosts, once sarcastic, praised her restraint. Jimmy Fallon joked, if poise was a superpower, Meghan Markle will be Marvel's next Avenger. Even Buckingham Palace reportedly issued a private note congratulating her for representing modern decorum with grace. A soft truce, perhaps, but symbolic nonetheless. A week later, Meghan returned quietly to California. In her garden, she found her son playing with a toy crown. He looked up and said, Mommy, are you a princess again? She smiled, knelt beside him, and replied, No, sweetheart. I'm a person who learned how to be kind, even when the world wasn't. Harry, watching from the porch, whispered, That's the real royalty. She laughed. Exactly. Universities began teaching her Paris incident as a modern case study in communication ethics. Seminars called it the Markle method. 3 steps. 1. Pause before you respond. 2. Turn insult into insight. 3. Respond with resonance, not rage. TED Talk invites poured in. She declined most, except one. She appeared on a minimalist stage, spotlight soft, voice steady. People say silence is weakness, but sometimes silence is armor. Quiet doesn't mean defeated. It means discerning. The room fell still. Her TED Talk hit 100 million views within a week, becoming the most watched of the decade. Jessica Mulroney launched a mentorship foundation named Second Chances in Meghan's honor. Camille Devereux left her talk show and began hosting a women's roundtable titled Unfiltered Grace. Both admitted publicly that the Paris incident changed how we speak to each other. One French columnist summed it up perfectly. Meghan Markle came to a fashion show and redesigned humanity's dress code. By year's end, The Price of Polish had won an Emmy for Best Documentary. During her acceptance speech, Meghan said, I thank those who mocked me, because ridicule introduced me to resilience. She paused, eyes glistening. And if anyone watching tonight feels reduced by labels, remember, your name doesn't need a title to be timeless. The crowd rose to its feet. The camera panned to the audience. Misha, Jessica, Camille, all applauding, teary, humbled. Back in Montecito weeks later, Meghan lit a candle on her balcony and wrote a single line in her journal. The applause faded, but the lesson stayed. Outside, the Pacific Ocean shimmered under moonlight. A soft breeze moved through the curtains, carrying echoes of the laughter that once mocked her, now replaced by peace. She closed her journal, smiled, and whispered, and that's how you wear a crown without needing one. Fade out. What began as mockery ended as mastery. Paris learned that ridicule ages poorly, but grace never goes out of style. And the world learned that the loudest comeback is calmness, that self-respect is louder than scandal.